that you're here with. So what I've read is that there's 20 young people like yourself, and you've been sponsored, or you won a competition to get here. Tell us a bit about that, Olivia.
Yes, so there's 20 of us, and we're representing all different parts over the UK. We've all got our own little networks in our regions where we meet normally weekly or something, and we talk about how we can help in our area. And we've all met here today met here over this week to try and get our input to the people around here, and also get some ideas from other people at COP26.
Okay, well, we're going to come back to you in a minute, Olivia and Costa. We're going to come back to you in a minute and ask you about what sort of difference your youth group's going to be able to make. But let's go back over to Valerie, because Valerie, you're in the blue zone on the nuclear stand. So tell us a bit about what's happening on the nuclear stand here.
So here we have on the nuclear stand, what we do is that we just welcome people that are walking around, and if you have questions about nuclear, we answer the questions. But in addition, there has been lots of different events, many events compared with other years. That's a very big difference that I see this year versus other years. There's been lots of events about nuclear. For instance, yesterday, the French government has hosted an event on nuclear innovation and what are the synergies that we can have thanks to nuclear innovation between nuclear and renewables to meet our climate goals. And we're very happy because it was a very VIP event with lots of VIPs, like a Minister of Finance. We had Kutibira was the Director General for the International Energy Agency.
Oh wow! So you had him on him on your stand, yeah?
Yeah, and we have Rafael Grossi, who is Director General for the IAEA, and so we had a very interesting conversation on these innovations that we're going to have, such as, for instance, on flexibility of nuclear, so we can do some load follow on variable renewables. We also have new reactor designs, and and that's something people don't know, is that with nuclear, you can do electricity, and we will need a lot of electricity for sure to meet our climate goals, but you also can do some heat. So you can do heat for housing, you can do heat for industry at very high temperature. You can do a lot of hydrogen. You can produce a massive amount of hydrogen, and we will need hydrogen, we'll need synthetic fuel. So I was really excited because some people are against nuclear. We cannot really present the solution and answer the questions. And this year we had plenty of opportunities, more than other years, to present nuclear and have discussions and dialogues about nuclear. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me just ask the question. I think people are aware of low carbon energy. They're aware of solar, wind, and nuclear in this area. In the UK, we get a lot of discussion about wind energy because that's popular here. But tell us a bit about what sort of reception you're getting to nuclear. I mean, what are people saying? Are people willing to talk about nuclear and consider nuclear as an option on a world basis, do you think, Valerie?
Yeah, I would say that people here are curious about nuclear. So they're really, they're asking questions and they want to engage with us because it's very rare that, we can talk about nuclear. Usually the discussion about nuclear is shut down by anti-nuclear groups. And here, and people are curious because they don't know about it. They heard stuff. And so they're open to discussion, right? So that we're seeing heat on the booths, in the corridors of the blue zone. But I think we're seeing more and more interest in nuclear because people understand that it's going to be very difficult to reach our climate goals if we don't use all the technologies that are available. And nuclear is available, plus it's dispatchable. So it's very complementary to renewables because even if you have lots of renewables, at some point in time, you need some dispatchable energies. And nuclear is a very competitive energy versus the storage technology, and it's available because some of the future storage technologies don't exist yet. So people understand more and more the value of nuclear. Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to the young people in a minute, but just before I do that, what's your take, Valerie, on the sort of balance between the more conventional nuclear, like we're getting in the UK at Hinkley Point, and the small modular reactors that there's been a lot of talk about, which there's been news in the press about Rolls-Royce building. So how do you see the balance between these two technologies?
Well, it depends on what your needs are. I think the UK and France, we have very strong grids. We have big countries with a lot of industries. So at that point, both in the UK and in France, we need to renew our existing fleets. It's urgent, and we need big units to make sure that we ensure security of supply, right? And we also, I think for the UK, there's also the reliance on gas, which is something that you want to get rid of, especially now that we're experiencing this crisis on energy markets, right? So I think both countries, we're in emergency mode. We have to renew our fleet, and we have to refuel our fleet on a limited number of sites. So we actually need to have big units, which you call conventional, but actually it's the latest generation reactors. I think in the 30s, we will need more different type of reactors in addition to the big reactors, so that we can provide, we can do heat, we can do hydrogen in a more flexible way, probably with smaller units. And so I think we will have both in our countries, probably big units for electricity, smaller units for, territorial energy systems. But I think other countries, they will not go through big units because they don't have a grid yet, and they will start with smaller units. When you look at the north of Canada or the north of Russia, the isolated sites, well, small units are perfect for that because they can do heat, they can do electricity, and in a very competitive way versus, right now these guys are using fuel or coal, right? So I think they really, compared with what you've experienced in the 70s and 80s, there will be a diverse market with different needs and different value propositions, yes.
Okay, that's a really, really helpful explanation, Valerie, of the difference between the two. But I'll come back to you in a minute, and we're going to talk about China. Yeah. But for now, let's back over to Olivia and to Costa. So Olivia and Costa, would one of you like to have a go, first of all, at this question about what sort of difference the 20 of you young people you think are going to be able to make here over this weekend?
So I think that we've really been sent up to COP in order to represent a youth voice. So we've been talking to people in our communities locally. So Surrey for me and Somerset. And we're kind of, as we're talking to people and making connections with others here, we're representing the voice of what our friends and family and people in our communities have told us. And we're going to be taking back what we've learned from our experience here and sharing that back with our community. So in a way, we're acting as representatives for people in our community. Closer to home, I think that this experience is really going to shape a lot of us and is going to be a great personal development opportunity and can really use that to make an impact in people that I meet in the future. And help engage people with the climate crisis in general.
Amazing. So in terms of what you've learned here, let's ask Olivia that question. Costa, you were talking about what you've learned while you're here. So Olivia, from what you've seen so far, what have you found that's been most exciting at COP26 that's really fired you up about something?
I think we went to one stand and they were giving out all these free seeds, and it's a thing where you make a promise to the planet about one thing that you were going to keep and you were going to make sure throughout your entire life that you do. So we've all been given these seeds to plant when we get home and to, look after those seeds as if they were like the entire planet and treat them how we want the whole planet to be treated. And I think there's quite a few nice teaching ways things like that you can bring back home and kind of encourage younger kids and other people to try and take that message on board.
Amazing. So, Costa, what about yourself?
So I've been interested for a long time in preservation of land for Indigenous peoples, and kind of preserving indigenous knowledge. And there's a really interesting organization that I met today called the Global Alliance of Territorial Communities. And they've been doing a lot of work with land rights and protecting land for indigenous communities who safeguard the majority of the world's biodiversity. So it's really key with a lot of these environmental issues, because in a way, these are the people who have been safeguarding the earth, for hundreds of years, and they have the knowledge to continue doing so.
That's great, Costa. There's a statistic that I've heard, which is that the indigenous people are something like 5% of the world's population, and they protect something like, what's the number? They protect a huge proportion of the world.
I think it was 80%, I think they said. 5% of the world's indigenous people protect 80% of the world's biodiversity, or something along those lines.
Magic. I've forgotten the number, Costa. So thank you for helping me with that. So that's really amazing. So I don't know, Valerie, whether you found anything from Brazil, but let me just ask you, Costa, any particular country that you're focusing on in terms of indigenous people? Any country that you know more about?
Indigenous people called the Hadzabe that live in Tanzania, which I've been researching and doing quite a few art projects on at school. And they're a group of people that I personally really connect with, because they're one of the last hunter-gatherer communities on the planet. And they have a lot of kind of indigenous knowledge with their interaction with animals and meat. And I think that we need a really big societal change in order to kind of strike balance with the earth again. And these are people that still have that balance, and they're under threat from kind of different agricultural practices that are spreading in their areas. And I think that kind of preventing that is really key to our adaptation.
That's amazing. Okay, so I've never heard of that indigenous group before, so thank you, Costa, for sharing that. That's absolutely amazing. And by the way, do put any links in the chat if you'd like to. But let's come back over to Valerie. So Valerie, there's been an amazing announcement this morning about China. Would you like to tell us about it?
Oh, so you mean the announcement about the 200 gigawatts that they're going to build? That's what you're talking about?
Tell us about it.
It's really amazing, because we see that China is really engaged into getting out of coal. And I think that's something I really liked about this COP, actually, is that we have announcements that are really concrete. We had these announcements about cutting methane leaks, right? We have these announcements about reforestation, and we have these announcements about shutting down coal. And nuclear is actually very effective to shut down coal, because it produces massive amount of electricity on very little land. So you can actually install a nuclear plant, like a small modular reactor, on a coal site, and actually use the existing transmission, more of the skills from the workers, and are actually the same skills, because it's just a steam machine in the end. So it's very good to go from coal to nuclear. It's quite easy, I would say. And you can see that China is engaged in getting out of coal, or reducing their amount of coal. And they invest massively in renewables, but they also invest massively in nuclear, because even in systems, electric systems with a lot of new renewable energies, you still need some dispatchable source that's going to provide base load, and that's going to ensure security of supply and the stability of the electricity network. Electricity cannot be stored in a massive way. So at any point in time, you have to adapt production and demand. And nuclear is very flexible. It produces on demand 24/7. And so you can see that China understands that. And their strategy includes renewable and nuclear. And probably they will include CCS, and all those technologies. And I think Chibiro, when he talks about it, he said, we will need all solutions, and we don't have the choice of using this technology or this one. We need all of them. It's not like I like this one and this one I don't like. I just need everything. And I think it's very important in political negotiations, because we've seen in Europe, some countries want to use nuclear, And some countries don't like nuclear, but they want to prevent others from using nuclear. So I think we have to acknowledge that we will need a significant amount of nuclear to reach, our goals. And Tochibiro said yesterday, we need to double the production of nuclear by 2050. That's the challenge for the industry. So what's great about China is that they have proven, because they had a continued industrial program on nuclear, that able to build massive amount of nuclear. They can build fast, right? Which is something we have to come back to it in Western Europe, because we've lost the experience, and we need to build back to learn how to build back fast, right? And I know in the UK we're waiting for decisions as well. And first in France we're waiting a decision on 60 CPR units coming soon, we hope. And that, I think the challenge for us will be really to learn again and develop our skills, our project management skills, to be able to build the units really fast. And I think so. There's discussion about, I like EPR, I like AP1000, I like this type of reactors. I don't think it's the key, because I think the key is really ability to run projects effectively, right? And all the designs are good. I think what we're missing today, and that we have to rebuild, is our ability to manage these projects in a very effective manner.
Okay, so Gary, do you want to bring Stefan Sabarese onto the screen?
Stefan, are you ready?
Before you do that, let me just clarify the announcement that we're talking about. So the announcement we've just spoken about is, it was on Bloomberg this morning, and Bloomberg announced that China is going to spend 440 billion US dollars on a massive nuclear build out. And so that involves building at least 150 new reactors in the next 15 years. Okay. And that is more than the rest of the world has built in the past 35. So, Stefan, we're going to come to you in a minute, but let's go back to the young people next. And Olivia, a bit special here, because you actually live just a short drive from the amazing Hinkley Point nuclear power station, which is famed for £91.50 per gigawatt hour. So we've been talking about more nuclear for China, etc., etc. As someone who lives near Hinkley Point, what's your do you have a comment on what's happening there, Gemma? Olivia.
I wouldn't say I have a comment on it as such, but there's a lot going on around there. Whenever you drive, I've had a tour around there. There's always busy. There's always so much going on. I did a work experience thing there about a year ago, and yeah, it's a very interesting place.
So tell us a little about. We're all massively excited now. What does it mean? What do you actually do when you do work experience on a nuclear power station building site? Tell us more.
So I was doing it with a college, and we went there for a tour, and we were going round. Because I was only 13, 14 when we went round, we weren't actually allowed completely off the coach, but we would drive around, we would stop at different places, and we would have workers talking to us about what they were doing, like the different things that was going on, things like that. I just remember there being lots of massive tubes everywhere. There was lots of things sticking out the walls and out the ground.
Okay, well, I'm really pleased that Hinkley Point Security felt that a busload of 13-year-olds was a massive security risk. But anyway, let's move on. So Costa, do you want to move on to Costa? Do you want to tell us a bit about, for the rest of your time at here at COP, what are you going to be particularly looking at?
Well, I've had an interesting look around, and there's one thing that I found very interesting. Organized by the WWF. They were talking about seagrass and seagrass regeneration projects, which within the UK, which I think is a really interesting and often overlooked subject. Seagrass and the ocean absorbs 70% of our CO2 emissions, I think it is. So it's really vital in the fight against climate change, and it's often overlooked when we talk about tree planting and stopping deforestation. And one of the key things that has been destroying our marine ecosystems has been overfishing, and that's been ripping out a lot of seagrass beds in the UK. So that's something that I'll be definitely looking out for, looking definitely at the marine aspect and how that links into my interests. So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, with the new technology coming along with fishing, I mean, fishing's just such a big thing with these ships and industrial equipment and these sorts of things doing all the fishing. I mean, is it not possible, do you think, Costa, at this time to use technology solutions to know where fishing boats are, to know when they're fishing, when they're not fishing? I mean, I was horrified to see that fleets of fishing boats are now sort of heading towards the Galapagos. And we had Alistair talking on the webinar on Wednesday about the fishing situation with the world's tuna in Papua New Guinea. I mean, is it going to be possible, do you think, to really try and get this much more under control than's been done to date, Costa?
Well, I think that there's two main issues. The first is the rise of illegal, unregulated fishing, especially in parts of the world which are much more undeveloped. So parts of Africa, South America are really struggling with this, especially because of foreign European and Chinese mainly fishing vessels. For example, in Ethiopia, the Ethiopians are only able to get something like 25% of the overall catch. The rest of it is European and Chinese fishing vessels, which are essentially kind of legally, but often unregulated kind of destruction of the ecosystem. They're just taking loads of fish out. And so the illegal, unregulated fishing is a huge problem. And there are a couple of organizations such as Sea Shepherd, which are really fighting against that and reducing that. And the other issue is that governments over the world paying huge subsidies to huge industrial fishing vessels, which is really a big problem. If fishing was done in a more sustainable, localized way with small boats, first of all, it would benefit small communities, coastal communities, much more, and it would be much harder to overfish. What we see with these industrial vessels is through kind of developments in technology, is less people are needed, more fish can be taken, and it can be done in a way where there's a lot more bycatch, and there's a huge disconnect with what people are actually catching. Huge amounts of bycatch are caused, and there's much less care for the environment because they can travel much further out. So what we need is this huge industrial fishing, which is just benefiting large corporations, to end, and for there to be a revival of kind of artisanal, small-scale fishing.
Costa, you are so on top of this issue. I'm just blown away. So for me, there's a couple of things here. One is that subsidies, we know about the huge subsidies that are going on. We know about subsidies for fossil fuels, but wow, this is the first time I've heard about subsidies for fishing ships, fishing vessels. So look, while you're here, just do everything you can to support stopping this, because this is utter nonsense. And the second thing is, what you've talked about is that the illegal fishing is being done not by the smaller countries, it's being done by the European and Chinese, they're big countries. So surely the countries, to my mind, these countries should be using technology. They should be having sensors as to where the ships are, and they should, by law, have to have sensors as to whether they're fishing or whether they're just, driving about. So whatever you can do over this next few days to move that forward, I think will be a massive impact on the world. So thank you, Costa. And just over to Olivia now. Same question for you, Olivia. What are you going to be watching out for in the next couple of days?
I think the things that I want to look at is much of the smaller projects, the things that is easier to bring back home and help to implement in our schools and in our communities. Okay.
Anything in particular there, Olivia?
Well, at our secondary school, when I used to be there in year 11, we focused a lot on the energy that we were using. So we've implemented solar panels, and we've had electric car stations that we put in. And we've also tried to make our sixth form now, zero plastic, zero waste is what we're trying to focus on. So if I can get any ideas from here that can help us to fulfill that at our sixth form, then
wow.
that's my aim.
So do you know, Olivia, do you know any of the numbers of how much CO2 your school has saved, or is that something you're going to be finding out over the next couple of days?
Well, the energy side of it is all at my secondary school. Now at my sixth form, it's a little bit different. But there's one idea that so what we're doing now, we've got a different bag for crisp packets. So we put all of our crisp packets in a bag, and then we take them to a charity that iron them and make them into blankets for homeless people. It's 150 crisp packets makes one blanket. So instead of putting them in the bin, we are taking them to a charity.
Well, we're learning something else every day. So thank you so much for that. So let's come over to Stefan. So Stefan, you're sitting in the middle of a forest in Corsica, yeah?
Yes. We are blessed with sun and rain, so it's very good. Hello, Valerie. Some people are asking, how can we fund the Nuclear for Climate booth in the green zone?
Oh, so it's so we're in the blue zone. That's why people don't find the.
Oh, you're in the blue zone. Sorry. Okay.
We're in the blue zone. Yeah, that's the easy answer. And we know hole 5. At the end of hole 5, behind the Brazilian biomes, I show you.
Okay.
Very beautiful Brazilian booth here.
Okay.
So we're in the blue. The answer is we're in the blue zone.
So I will let them know right away, because I told them I think it's in the green zone. But
No, we're in the blue zone.
okay, thanks.
Okay,
so
everybody, Stefan Sefaresi is the president of Saving Our Planet, and Stefan, you've been an amazing climate expert for so many years now. We've got a question come up in the chat from Hugh Rose. We're going to come on to that in a minute. But Stefan, first of all, would you like to ask a question of Valerie?
Yes. So, what do you expect from COP26 in terms of outcome for support of nuclear power?
What we expect from the event, right, is first the recognition of our role as a climate solution, because we are a major climate solution, because we are available now, and we've proven that we can decarbonize quite fast. And often we never talk about nuclear, so we want to be recognized. It's really an issue of recognition, so that the dialogue starts about nuclear. And I think this year, that's what I was saying, I think we're very happy about the way things are, because we have been able to really engage and talk to people much more than previous years. So it's really great. And otherwise, what I expect is success for COP26. I expect this as a citizen. And I think even if people have been criticizing the COP process, I think this year we have major breakthroughs that are very concrete, because, people were saying, cutting methane emission is one of the fastest way we can reduce our emission today. And we have an agreement. And yesterday, Bureau said that actually when we compute all the NDCs, the ambitions from the countries that have been provided, he still computed 1.7 degrees. So it's good. It's better than ever. So that makes us more hopeful, provided, of course, countries execute on their commitment. And we know that countries have been very hopeful, very ambitious. And now we need to see the results. I know in France, one thing we're expecting is a decision on the renewal of the nuclear fleet. And if we don't have this renewal, we are at risk of not having enough electricity to decarbonize the rest of the economy. Our electricity is already decarbonized, but we need to renew our fleet to make sure we can decarbonize in the long term, and especially electrified transportation, which is a place where we currently use our does this answer your question? I wanted to make a small comment on what you said about the price of cooking clay. I think there are really two things I'd like to say. The first one is the first of a kind, right? So for sure, the price is expected in size world should be much lower, because already the second unit testing is going much faster than the first unit. So we can see that teams are gaining experience, so we expect they'll go even faster as well. Second, I think the UK government is coming up with a financing scheme that's much better than the one that was used for Hinkley, which was financed at 10%. So that's very high financial cost. And from what I've seen from the UK government, there's going to be this RAP process that's going to cut down of the cost of financing the unit and in the end cutting the cost of electricity. So I think it's great. And last but not least, I mean, we think 90 pounds is, it's expensive. But right now with the gas prices, the wholesale markets in Europe are more around 200 pounds, right?
Wow, 200 pounds.
Yeah, I think the point here is not the price of each means of production of electricity. Of course, it's important, but it's not the only factor. What is important is the price of the whole system. And when you have variable production, you will need dispatchable production. So now, whether you want it to be nuclear, it's low carbon, it's great. Or you want to have gas, it's high carbon and variable cost, right? Or you want to have storage, and then you don't know yet whether the technologies will be available. Okay. So
I've got a question for you on this, Valerie, and then we'll come over to the young people again. But my question is this: I was on a webinar yesterday. So last week, there was a day when the UK's got 24 gigawatts of wind power. And there was a day when the UK produced 12 gigawatts of actual wind power. And the cost per megawatt was about £60. So the next day, instead of 12 gigawatts of wind power, there was 1 gigawatt of wind power. And the cost per megawatt went up to £4,000 per megawatt on that day. So the UK is planning 40 gigawatts of wind. So we're going to go from 24 gigawatts of wind. I'm not sure it's another 40 gigawatts of wind or total. But the problem is, if there's a day when there's no wind and only 8% of that is delivering, then it's just not going to happen. So just tell us a little bit about, Valerie, how you see nuclear can really help solve that problem that the UK has with wind and energy.
Yeah. So when you look at in France, our government just ordered a major report that took 2 years to complete, and all the players contributed to this report. We contributed to this report, but also the wind industry, the solar industry, everyone. And they had 6 scenarios, 3 scenarios without nuclear and 3 scenarios with nuclear. And when you look at the cost of production, it's about the same for all scenarios. But what makes really a difference is that for scenarios without nuclear, you need a lot of what they call flexibility. It's usually storage, or it could be new technologies such as power to gas to power, where you have, for instance, new gas plants that use hydrogen, clean hydrogen, for instance, right? If these technologies don't exist, and they can be really costly. And the second thing you have, which is also very costly, is a lot of investment in the grid to make sure that you have security of supply and you maintain systems balance. So that's really what nuclear does, is that it drives down these prices of the grid, cost of storage, the cost of all these expensive things that we need to add to the network to ensure the balance of the system when there's no wind. That's really what will be costly. What will be costly is the backup systems we need when there's no wind. And that's where nuclear plays a big role. Yes. Okay.
So thanks for that, Valerie. We're going to come to a question from Stefan in a minute. But sorry, Olivia Costa. We're getting towards the end now. So if you'd like, Olivia, would you like any final points to make about what you've seen, what you've learned, what you're going to be doing?
No, nothing else really to add on that, but I just want to thank you for having us here. It's been really interesting to listen to everyone.
It's been amazing. I've just gone out of focus, so try and sort that. Okay, so yes, okay. Well, thank you so much, Olivia, and I really hope that when you get back home to the real life, that you'll be able to tell some more people and persuade more people about the experience that you've had here. What about yourself, Costa?
One thing I wanted to mention was that the commercial fishing subsidies by the largest governments in the world make up something like 30 billion, which is what has been estimated is needed to end world hunger. So really, subsidies are very powerful, and I think government subsidies should end, especially with things that are harming the environment. So, yeah.
Okay, so Costa, why don't you, it'd be amazing if you could write about that and email me some stuff about that, because this is new to me. I mean, you know, when people talk about subsidies, I think we automatically think of fossil fuel subsidies and whatever, but the subsidies you've talked about to do with fishing, it'd be really, really amazing to hear from you about that. But just a final question for the two of you, unless Gary's got anything to add. I'd really like to ask about, in your school, the sort of straw poll, how many people like yourself are really, really passionate about doing something about, you know, stopping global warming and really making the effort to do something like you have? And what sort of proportion of people are really saying, well, look, you know, they're just not bothered and happy to let things go as they are?
Okay. Well, we've got a committee in our school. Is this society of everyone who wants to be a part of trying to reduce the plastic consumption and help with climate change in our school. I would say in our group, we have about 20 people, and there's 130 people in the entire sixth form. However, that's just the people that turn up to the group. There are a lot of people that also, you know, have input around the school, even though they're not part of the group.
Okay.
So I think people are becoming more aware of it and are actually wanting to make a difference, especially in my sixth form especially.
Okay. So of those 120 people, how many people do you think, okay, you've got a lot of people are active, you've got 20 people are active, but how many people do you think are really just not bothered?
Not bothered. I honestly, I wouldn't say anyone is not bothered. Everyone I've seen always use recycling bins, always use the bins and spins.
Really?
Yeah, I think at our school, we do try to make it quite a big thing. We have posters up everywhere. We try to enforce it, not enforce it, but try to make people aware of it a lot. So
amazing.
I wouldn't say there's a single person at my sixth form that doesn't care at all.
Okay. So Costa, what about you at your school?
So I've been on I sort of set up the environmental committee at my school 3 years ago. And I'd say since then, the engagement has really gone through the roof. Started off with a really small group, and it's building and building and building. So I'd say now in my sixth form, we have around 25% of students who are sort of actively engaged. And I think we've been engaging them through the work that we've been doing in school, but also through subjects. We've been trying to embed talking about the climate crisis and just ecological awareness within geography and the sciences, which has really helped a lot. And we've been trying really to engage and get students in junior school interested. So we've been pioneering a project where we've been building bird boxes and teaching the junior school students how to build bird boxes and assembling them and putting it in the woodland at school. And what it's doing is it's giving them skills, but it's also engaging them from a young age into environmental issues to create a long-term engagement and kind of try and instill a passion in them. And I'm really hopeful that over time, students are going to become more and more engaged, in a high percentage of them as well.
Fantastic. Well, Costa, congratulations. You're the man. You've been driving all this action, and Olivia too. So look, we're going to let you two of you go now, and we're going to talk a little bit more about...
Charles, if I could just say to the two youngest members of the panel, your legacy is going to live on. Your grandkids will say, wow, you were at COP. So I think you're superstars, you're rock stars, you're just amazing. And I can't wait till you get back to school and everyone's asking you to sign signatures and
and you've got you've just it's going to be some great video clips from the two of you as well, aren't we, Gary? So big thank you. Hang on if you want, but we're going to carry on a bit of a discussion now about nuclear. If you've got to go, you've got to go.
Yeah, we've got to go. Sorry.
Huge thank you to yourself and to Gemma, who's been hosting you. Thank you so much, and really get all this data that you need, you guys, so that you can make an even bigger difference over the next couple of days when you get back to your school. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, that's been amazing, absolutely amazing. So Stefan, over to you. A few more questions I'm sure you've got for Valerie.
Yes. So just a note on what we said before, which is comparing the price of nuclear and other sources of energy should be really done in the context of a power grid where you want to have available power. And just today, we can see that at COP26, half of the power is coming from wind, and the other half is coming from nuclear. And without nuclear, that network would simply just not work. If you want to shut off the nuclear power, you'll have to replace it with something like gas or oil or coal, and that's definitely not the way forward. So I think the choice is simple. If you want to, instead of building Sizewell, if you want to create an available wind field that guarantees 3 gigawatts of power available all the time, it means about 300 gigawatts of wind power, because the guaranteed power output of an average wind turbine park is about 1%. So if you wanted to build 300 gigawatts of wind turbines in the UK, that would mean about 10,000 really big wind turbines. So you see, it's not workable. It's not a workable solution to rely only on wind or on some kind of power. You need a mix of many different solutions that can actually fit the needs of the power grid.
So look, we're coming to the end of the time now. So Valerie, any final points from you you'd like to make before we close?
No, I think we have to be trustful, and I know the negotiation process can be frustrating because we feel we haven't made progress, but I think we do. And from what I see from the discussions that we're having this week at COP, I think we've never been so close. I think we've made a lot of progress towards, I hope, making a difference and reach our, climate goals.
Great, that's very good. Thank you, Valerie. Gary, any comments from you?
With every day, I feel more optimism.
Me
Keeping
too,
1.5 alive is something that we the whole reason for this, and we are drawing to an end. So I want to thank Charles and Stefan for all their determination and carrying this through. Charles, without you, none of this would be happening, and I know that you're making such a huge difference. So I on behalf of everyone, we thank you for your energy and what you put into this.
Thanks, Gary. This is a sponsored event. So if you've been listening to this on recording or live and you'd like to contribute, then if you're able to make a donation to us through the website, then we can plant some trees for you. So £20 will plant 180 trees. £30, 270 trees. And if you'd like to plant 1,000 or 10,000 trees, then that will make a difference, huge difference to the planet for everybody.
And it's so easy. Piece of cake.
It's so easy. Absolutely. Valerie, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the trip here. And same for Stefan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us and your inspiration and knowledge here. So thank you very, very much. Great to see you. All the very best. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, wow. Wow, Charles. That was quite something. Do you want me to stop recording?
Yep.
All right. So this is the end of the recording.
Recording stopped.
So if you're watching live, we are next again on Saturday. We're here again on Saturday at 12 o'clock.
Yep.
So, we'll see you then.
So offer to bring people in on the screen if you want,
You're
Gary.
happy with that, yeah?
So Lisa, Pauline, Bob, Julie.